On March 21st, 2019, a group of 15 of us left Dulles Airport and headed for the small and unique country of Panama, a country that most of us knew little about. This tour was organized, coordinated, and led by Joe and Joyce Huttenstein. Once in Panama, we were joined by our Panamanian tour guide, Hernan Arauz, and his wife, Maria Isabel. Most people know that Panama has a canal that is a significant asset to worldwide shipping, but many do not know much else, including where the country is located. Panama is a relatively narrow bridge of land that connects North and South America. Its northern neighbor is Costa Rica, and its southern is Colombia. Now, let's take a closer look at the canal, which connects the Caribbean Sea to its north with the Pacific Ocean to its south. It is 48 miles in length. The French first attempted to build the canal in the latter half of the 1800s, but that effort failed. In 1903, the U.S. secured the rights to build it, and in spite of great adversity, completed it on August 15, 1914. The U.S. then maintained, controlled, and operated the canal until 1999, when the U.S. released full control to Panama. So, how does the canal work? A ship in the Caribbean Sea first goes through a series of 3 locks that raise it up to Gatun Lake, which is approximately 89 feet above sea level. The ship then travels through Gatun Lake and the Culebra Cut. Excavating the Culebra Cut was a major challenge. The rock excavated would be enough to build 63 pyramids equal in size to those in Egypt. The ship then enters a lock that lowers it to the Miraflores Lake, and then 2 more locks that lower it to the Pacific Ocean. Here is a map view of the path a ship takes as it enters the canal, goes through the 3 locks, traverses Gatun Lake and Culebra Cut, and exits the canal via the final 3 locks. Each of the original locks completed in 1914 are 42 feet deep, 110 feet wide, and 1,000 feet long. As larger and larger ships were built, it became necessary to construct new locks to accommodate them. The new locks are 60 feet deep, 180 feet wide, and 1,400 feet long. Here is an aerial view of the northern locks showing the old locks and the new ones. On our first full day in Panama, we traveled north along the canal to the town of Gamboa, where we boarded a tourist boat which joined a boat loaded with 4,000 cars on its journey through the canal. We entered Gatun Lake at its southern end and traveled through Culebra Cut to the southern locks.
The canal only allows very big vessels to go through one way at a time. They head northbound towards the Atlantic in the mornings, southbound in the afternoons. Biggest car carriers that can fit in the locks we will go through today, the original lock system, we go through with as many as 5,990 vehicles in them. Biggest car carrier in the world has already come through the new lock system, carrying 8,500 vehicles in it.
During our passage through the Culebra Cut, we passed the car carrier. Now we are entering the first lock, which is called the Pedro Miguel Lock. The car carrier joined us.
Cada uno de 4,5 pies de diámetro, por los cuales el agua entra o sale de la estructura. Válvulas de acero están emplazadas dentro del ducto en la pared, a la altura donde están las compuertas. No se ven estos paños, and no more water can come in from Lake Gatun.
After we entered the lock, they shut the gates behind us. Next, they opened the valves in the floor of the lock, allowing the water in the lock to drain to a depth of 32 feet. When it reached the level of Lake Miraflores, the gates in front of the lock were opened, allowing us to proceed into Lake Miraflores. This was the first of 3 steps downward to get us to the Pacific Ocean. The final 2 locks are named the Miraflores locks. Here we are entering lock number 2, which is the first of the Miraflores locks. The gate then closed behind us. The water was drained into lock number 3, lowering us 32 feet, and then the gates in front were opened, allowing us to move into lock number 3. Here we see how our boat was secured while we were in the lock. Again, the water was drained out of the lock, lowering us to the channel leading to the Pacific Ocean. This is Panama City. 80% of the tall buildings you see have been built since 2004. This boat drew alongside us to pick up the canal pilot that accompanied us on our journey through the canal. After exiting our boat, we took a short ride to the Panama Canal Visitor Center, where we were able to observe a ship being guided through the locks by the large electric mules, 2 in front and 2 in the rear. They make sure the ship stays centered during its journey through the locks. After we had dinner at the visitor center, we stepped outside again to view the nighttime operation of the canal. To visit the Embera Indian village, we traveled by dugout canoe.
I'm old. Old woman.
They say old is the wind, but it still blows.
What is the word for old?
Viejo.
Viejo. Gotta get that situated right. I did. Will you stop it? I'm trying to put my hand out. And the sun is.
At one point, the river got too shallow and we had to take a short hike.
Hi, Lorraine. Hi. What an adventure. That's great. Great. Sam,
Yes.
did you get those water hyacinths?
No, I did.
Sam. Norma, wait for me.
No, there are those. That type is actually in trees. Over there, it's too sunny. Ah, bueno, alguien que me diga. Look at the common gallinules. ahead. Ahí está, allá. Acá. Wood. He hasn't given it the final shine. That has to be done by hand or using a deer horn, rub it real tight. A ver, Micael, mírame.
Hola.
These photos give you a feel for the intricate designs they paint on each other and the colorful and elaborate clothing and flowers they wear.
With natural dyes with different colors. And then she works that over the fiber that gives strength. And then they weave in the pattern. So watch what she does. Ah, gracias. This is the fiber that gives the strength. This is called Nawala. So she's using that.
A little while ago, she was doing the black part. Next time I look,
That's a shirt. Oh, what is that? Oh, what is that?
Mama.
Is that strange?
are you getting hot? Are you getting hot?
Oh, get that. Oh.
I want to speak in Kiswahili and it won't communicate.
Really?
How do I say very beautiful?
A major source of their income comes from the sale of the baskets, trays, carved figures, earrings, etc. that they produce. They are very skilled craftsmen. This chestnut-billed toucan joined us in the gift area, perhaps for our entertainment. He then followed us back to the main meeting house to see what food he could pilfer. As you can see, he had some success.
Mira, ve. ¿Cómo está, ve? Kimberly, cuéntanos un poco. Para México lleva muchos años organizando estos tours, trayendo a la gente a conocer un poco de la cultura que es hermosa, poder compartirla con todos.
A red lord parrot also joined us in the meeting house. Then it was time for dancing. They first put on a performance for us and then invited us to join them.
I don't know. What should I say? Should we do it? Want to go?
On our way home, we discovered that two men had been excavating this narrow channel by hand.
Ajá, siendo negra. Napunuada, gira. Ajá. It's how you know wires like that. So you cut it off.
On day 4, we took a boat tour in Lake Gatun. The goal of this excursion was to explore several inlets and coves of the lake, looking for birds, monkeys, unique trees, and whatever else of interest that presented itself. Here we saw the remains of a railroad that had been used for the excavation of the canal. We also got to see a number of ships that were traveling through the canal, giving us a broader sense of the size and variety of these ships. Here is a sample of the birds that we saw on our tour of these inlets. This inlet attracted a number of tour boats, mainly to see the red-naped tamarin monkeys that were there. Traveling by bus along the canal gave us an opportunity to get a feel for the culture. Perhaps the most striking thing we saw were the privately owned buses, some of which were elaborately decorated.
I see all these church signs. Like, why would people getting piles of bananas in there. Look at the other vegetables, fruits. People getting bananas.
On day 5, we traveled by plane from Panama City to the city of David in the northwest of Panama, and then by bus to the town of Boquete. On our way to Boquete, we stopped at the Cotowa Coffee House, which provided an excellent view of Boquete, nestled in the valley between the surrounding hills. As we entered Boquete, we passed these beautiful gardens, and then traveled through town to the Serrania Hotel, which served us well for the next 3 nights.
We're in the town.
enjoyed watching the school children walking to school. Some of them were accompanied by their parents. The mountain in the distance is Baru Volcano, an inactive volcano that last erupted in the 1500s, spewing tons of rocks that have been used to build these fences. Take note here of the creative use of these 3 used tires. Here we made a brief stop to get a closer look at a local farmer's heifer pens. Traveling along the west side of Baru Volcano gave us an opportunity to assess the rugged beauty of this area. We passed many farms, some vegetable, some dairy, and some beef. Some fields were in the valleys, but many were on the steep slopes of hills. One of the farms that we passed, named Aras Sarapunda, raised, we were told, the finest thoroughbred horses in Panama. We passed through a number of small towns. This one was called Guadalupe. The cloud formations in this area were rather dramatic at times. We are now returning to Boquete. Here are some photos of the streets, buildings, and shops within the town. One of the places we visited on day 5 was the butterfly house.
The process is going to start right here. These are some of the eggs and the caterpillars that just came out. You can see some of them there. This lady right here, Miss Lupe, is the one that takes care. She's like the grandmother of all the caterpillars we're going to see inside. So here, once they come out of the egg, their first meal is going to be the outside part of the egg, the shell of the egg. Once they eat that, then we move them to the host plant. And they're going to be feeding on that plant. This one, for example, which is the caterpillar of the blue morpho, it's going to be feeding about 50 days from the plant. So the chrysalis is what's inside the caterpillar, the body of the caterpillar. Once they start this process, the caterpillar liquefies inside the chrysalis. And then from that liquid, the body of the butterfly forms. It's gonna take them about a month. Then once the butterfly comes out, we wait until they dry their wings, that it takes them about 3 hours, and then we move them to the butterfly house so they can reproduce in there and live inside the butterfly house.
Oh, look at these. Hey, birdie. Birdie.
Outside the butterfly house, I captured photos of these 3 hummingbirds.
You taste it? Only 1 or 2 petals in your mouth. It's a little bit anesthesia.
This is the poor man's umbrella.
This one is a tiny fern. Here is a lichen. Okay? That's a lichen. So there's so many things. If you become 1 millimeter tall, this will be like the Amazon for you. And you go in there and you will find a myriad of different plant forms in this little patch.
Did he move? No, it's staying in the same place. The only thing is move it around, but it's in the same place. You see the tail? In the branches? And they start to grow. Yeah. And here, and that exactly points like to.
Here are a few additional birds that we saw on this hike.
With these tools, I can write better than what other people with the pen. Yes.
After Gladys won the numbers raffle presented by Arte, he sat right down and in a few minutes created a decorated mug for her.
When it is put together, it would be like this more clean.
Oh, beautiful. How many coats?
With these 11.
11.
These photos give you a feeling for how talented this craftsman is.
In England, people stop drinking coffee and they have tea because the English brought the Turkish tradition of having coffee with a male companion only, you know? Yeah. Coffee houses were only for male. But in England, they have prostitutes in there too. They didn't know. So the English lady wrote a letter saying that they didn't want coffee in England because it lowered the libido of their husband. But actually it was they had someone there. And then that's why they have better tea in England. They prefer tea. But in France, on the other side, men and women can drink coffee together. And then Romanticism started, right? And then the French Revolution, they were drinking too much coffee and talking too much about politicians. Okay, guys.
We began our visit by traveling on an airstrip built by the U.S. during World War II, then drove through approximately 2 miles of the 600-acre coffee estate. We then disembarked and hiked to a meadow where we were served lunch. host was Luigi, the husband of Jeanette Jansen, the third-generation owner of the estate.
You don't drink coffee there?
I do. Well, did I drink coffee yesterday? I guess I did. I think I had a half cup, yes.
Yeah.
You can tell you're drinking
How is it?
Very rich coffee.
I even managed to take a few bird photos during the luncheon. After lunch, they demonstrated this human-powered sugarcane compression machine.
And you will see how it works. This grinds how you can imagine. Some people will put the sugar cane on this side. Some water will be on the other side connected to the sugar cane, like here. Once it comes out here, you put it in the other grinder, right? Stay still. Action!
Try with those fingers.
We want to play the maps with your fingers here today. This is what I told you. Yes, let her put you on the floor. And now it's like
Other volunteer.
Oh, no, your wife is helping. No, not you. Great.
Now we're filtering the sugar cane. This is what we get. Right?
This is the second coffee farm that we visited.
Know the name of our town? Do you remember?
No, go can't take it.
Molto bene. Mamma mia. The family is the family. All right. And we pay every single basket of like this one, $5. Represent 28 to 30 pounds. How many baskets I can pick per day? Wow, depends. 5, 10, 15, 20. So those guys make very good money today. Look at this. Yeah.
After a tour of the facilities, Len prepared various kinds of coffee for us to taste. Geisha coffee is the most expensive and highly touted in some parts of the world, but most of our group did not care for it. On day 8, we took a 1.5-hour bus ride to the Pacific coast to the Seagull Cove Lodge, located on a steep slope to the sea. From here, we boarded 2 boats and headed for Paradas Island. On the way, one boat developed engine trouble and had to be towed by the other boat. During the several hours we were here, some enjoyed a swim in the ocean or resting on the beach, while Hernan and Maria helped Ron and Darwin master the basics of snorkeling. When we returned to the hotel, we were served dinner in the small open tiki bar restaurant on the dock. For our meal, we had the choice of a large gourmet burger or sea bass broiled in coconut sauce. Both were delicious. First, here are a few scenes from the Radisson Panama Canal Hotel. We ended our tour of the Old City at the Rene Cafe, where we had perhaps the finest meal during our time in Panama. In closing, I am hoping that this presentation has helped those of you who were a part of this tour to remember and treasure the time we spent in Panama. I also want to especially thank Joe and Joyce for making this tour possible and for their excellence in coordinating our daily activities. For those of you who were not a part of the tour, I hope this presentation has helped increase your knowledge of this small but significant country, especially concerning the canal, which is considered to be one of the world's greatest technological and structural achievements.